designer and developer meeting. As you can see, there was a lot of interest. We started this because we wanted to get an idea of who on campus was doing the same thing that we do. And actually, Scott, they have a programmers meeting, and we were like, well, why don't we have that for us? And actually, there was a web developer forum on campus like several years ago. I think Craig headed it up, and I just haven't heard anything well, so we started it again. Actually, right after we sent the email, we got like 20 responses that were like, yeah, let's be there, and stuff. So now we have people. Anyway, our plan today is just to get a quick introduction of like who's here, and we wanted to go around the room and be like, everybody say their name and what they're working on and stuff, but there's a lot of people, so maybe next time, I guess. But we also have a couple of CMS demos that we want to go through, and then just to talk about what we want to do with this group and things that we want to learn and other topics to cover in the future. So just real quick for introductions, we wanted to do like quick shows of hands of like what things people work on and that type of stuff. So who here actually designs websites, like gets into Photoshop, does wireframes, layouts, things like that? Cool, good amount of people. And who here does the coding part? So who develops, writes CSS, HTML, any kind of jQuery, JavaScript? Hey, it's like pretty equally balanced. And is there anybody here who does something else, like develops content or deals more with users, things like that?
Sometimes.
Pretty good. Interesting. And then just since today we're going to be talking about content management systems, who here uses the campus content management system, Penn Hill? Oh, wait, no, we don't. And who here uses Drupal? Cool. Anybody use Plone? And then, I don't know what else is there.
WordPress.
WordPress?
Couple WordPress.
Pretty good. Joomla?
I'm a little.
Also
Not on
good.
campus, though. No.
Does anybody use anything different that wasn't mentioned?
SharePoint?
SharePoint. Cool. Orchard? Anybody use Orchard? Randomly? No? Does anybody write their own CMS system for their...
Not anymore.
Long time ago.
Yeah.
Nice.
Written in COBOL.
And then does anybody not use content management systems? So they use just static websites or anything else?
We have
Yeah.
some.
Oh, we have static.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Good to know. Okay. So I guess we'll go into the demo systems. I saw Rick. Is Sean here?
I'm here.
Oh, you're Sean. Nice
Yeah.
to meet you. Cool. So we're gonna have 3 demos, and if anybody wants to talk about some CMSs that aren't mentioned, then we can go over that afterwards. We have Sean with Drupal. Rick's gonna show the campus one, and then Cal's gonna show Plone. And in case anybody doesn't know, a content management system is just like a piece of software that makes it a little bit easier for us to develop websites and provide like a clean theme or template interface, and then provides an interface for users to go and write content for the web that even if they don't have any kind of web programming experience. So with that, I guess we'll start with Rick or Sean. Do you want to go first?
Go for it, Rick.
I only printed 12 of these, so if you don't get one, let me know. One of the things that UC has now implemented across campuses is the web accessibility policy. UC Davis has such a policy, so as you create content, whether anything that appears on the web, meaning PDFs, applications, dynamic, web-enabled databases, they all are to meet accessibility requirements. So that little handout, talks about the screen. The IT service catalog has a link down here called Web Services. And if you look, you can see the services that are offered centrally on campus to support web content maintenance and design. And we're going to talk about a few of these days. Sean and I will talk about 2 CMS, but I want to mention some of the others. So Sean's going to talk about the Pantheon Drupal hosting. I'm going to mention quickly the campus web CMS. but I think you also need to know about this web hosting service, which is a virtual web hosting service that IET supports, which is, I think, really good. Strategic Communications, which is where I'm out of, we use it now for a lot of our sites because it's cheap. So basically it's cPanel, and for $85 a year, you have an instance which gives you one-click installation of WordPress, MySQL, PHP, Ruby, Perl, and you can have multiple instances, that is multiple sites per instance. So we have like 5 sites running on one instance, $80 a year. So if you're tired of running your own server for whatever reason, and you want to do it more cheaply, this is not a bad service. And the reason we have that is, talking about the Web CMS now, the Web CMS service is a centrally funded service on campus which essentially is geared for providing content management services for free to administrative and academic business units. We do not support faculty research sites, for instance. We don't support board sites, for instance. But without all my stats, I'll just have to fake it here. It's been reasonably popular since it's been started. It's now been funded for almost 3 years. We have about 400 sites in the system. About half of those are actually live. We have about 700 users in the system. So it's been a pretty popular service. It is free to clients to use. The only gotcha is, and I'll quickly describe how it works, which is a little different from maybe other web CMSs you're familiar with. It's more like an enterprise level Dreamweaver, in that instead it creates baked sites. So what happens in this tool is you create and maintain your content in the service, and then when you're happy with it, you publish that out to a web server. And that is a baked page. It no longer talks back to the web CMS. It's a one-directional thing. There are some cons to that, and there are some pluses to that. One of the cons, which is also a plus, is you have to provide a web host. That's why cPanel came around, is we realized some people may not have their own web host. So this gives you an $80 a year web host that works quite well with the CMS. The advantage to providing your own web host is that if the CMS service drops dead for some reason, maintenance or anything else, it actually is up about 98% of the time, 99 as of this morning. It doesn't affect your site. Your site's on your server. So it doesn't matter if the data center is bombed by the Mad Bomber. If your server is sitting somewhere else, it's still running and it's still serving your content. It also means in your own environment you can set up test instances if you want to do a development and publish to a test instance before you publish live. And it also means one of the big advantages is that it's server-side language agnostic. So we have sites running on PHP, we have ASP sites, we have a Lasso site, Cold Fusion, we have lots of Cold Fusion sites. So it doesn't care. It publishes it out and it puts the extension on the pages it's been told to if it's CFM. Your server executes the code, not it. The other advantage for us is because it's not actually doing any kind of web hosting, it doesn't do that function, it scales really well. We can do a large number of sites on a single server because it doesn't have that extra overhead. The service is hosted at the data center, and that's sort of it. What I wanted to pass on is if you're interested in the service, go to this site, which is cms.ucdavis.edu, and I can show you making a page, but I'm not going to take that time to do it. You can look for yourself, because he has an interface. What I would like to point out is if you want to see what some of the things it can do is if you look at the training, you can see how to do certain things, like if you wanted to create a slideshow, you look at our content library, we have a slideshow block, and it will sort of show you what the interface looks like to do this function. The key here, I think, is to realize that the way that the service is designed, it has to meet certain criteria for campus. So we meet as best we can, accessibility guidelines in all the content that we provide you, and then of course, you create content so you pass it up, so you still have to do some stuff. We give tips and tricks on how to do that. We're meeting campus identity standards, we're meeting campus color standards. So one of the intents of the service was to provide something that allows you to make a campus compliant site more easily. Is it customizable? Oh yeah. You can do JavaScript at the site level or the page level. You can do CSS at the site level or page level, and that gives you an enormous amount of customization. The other thing that we rolled out only about a year and a half ago is a modular design. So, for instance, this page is what we call a flex page. It's just the head and the foot, which is down there somewhere, and all of this layout is completely built however you want. You can have any number of rows, any number of columns, and all the components in these areas are actually blocks of code. So we have a block for a slide, and if you create a slideshow block, you can take that block and plug it anywhere on a page where we allow blocks to be plugged in. If you want a movie player, same thing. If you want an FAQ, same thing. So, quick show you, for instance, an FAQ block. Again, it's going to show you how to do it, but down at the bottom, we have an FAQ block. This block allows you to decide whether or not you want to toggle it. You can make as many FAQ pairs as you want, repeating. You can reorder them, and then you plug it into a page somewhere where a block goes and you're done. You can have as many blocks of this type as you want. So it's a pretty modular kind of system. What else? I know what I was going to talk about, but I can't. Somewhere on this site, and I'd have to go look for it, I don't want to take the time, there's a handy-dandy page that shows you some of the sites that we have in the CMS, which includes the campus home site, chancellor site, a lot of the office of the chancellor and provost sites are in it, and we have administrative academic sites as well. So that gives you an idea of what's it about. Like I said, the easiest way, if you want to just poke around, is go to this site, cms.ucdavis, and take a look. Tells you how to get on it, tells you what it can do. If you have any questions, send us an email. I did mention the accessibility flyer if you're interested, because there is a group on campus that meets once a month to talk about web accessibility issues, which will probably dribble into this group as it goes along. The other thing I wanted to mention is one other site. See, I wear too many hats here. This is my other, that's fine. That's close enough. Come back. Hey. This used to be called, for those of you who've been around a while, identitystandards.ucdavis.edu, and with the advent of new management staff, it's now called Marketing Toolbox. But this is a great resource because it tells you what the use of the campus standards features are, what you can and can't use and how you can use them, which includes the word mark, the logos, what fonts and color schemes we use. And also will give you access to resources for the One UC Davis campaign. One of the things that we're going to try to be doing in the web CMS, but also, I'm not going to go into the simple service, but the idea of being able to go and grab content from the One UC Davis campaign that's fresh and put it on your own site. Go out and find something you want to include, and there will be pre-written content that you can go and grab and plug onto your sites as you want to use it.
So my name is Sean DeArmond. I work for IET in the Application Development Unit. I'm going to talk about Drupal. And when you go online and you look for an intro to Drupal video or something, they're going to tell you how to make like a static website. Well, I'm not going to talk to you about that. Rick already showed you a great way to make the static websites through the web CMS without needing the overhead of a whole platform for that. Drupal does all kinds of other stuff, and what I really want to focus on is the idea of structured data. So you can have your structured content in a way so that either your structured content being the content on your site, or the data including the users, products if you're using, if you have an e-commerce type site, form submissions or anything else, is the idea of the structured data on your website. It has user management and all this other great stuff, so we really use it for like web application development, or anytime we have some sort of marketing site that needs some really highly structured content system. It's something that has a whole lot of dynamic functionality that takes that content and strews it all over the site. So that's what we really end up using Drupal for quite a bit. Drupal is a community. It's an open source software. It was started in the early 2000s by that dude, Dries Buytaert, at his dorm room in I forget. Belgium, that's where it is. And now it's a worldwide phenomenon. There's events all over the world. There's the Drupal cons and camps. I highly recommend going to Bad Camp, which is the Bay Area Drupal camp in October, or November. It's at UC Berkeley. The Sacramento Drupal Users Group meets once a month, the third Wednesdays at the Hacker Lab in Sacramento. There's sprints, which is people getting together to really help build this platform all over the world. It's really a big thing. So talking about the structured data, this is a screenshot of a simple kind of content structure where you have articles, maybe a basic page which is sort of static, maybe you have events, portfolio that has a slideshow associated with it, or like a photo gallery associated with it, where you have a homepage slideshow, and then you can create additional ones. And so the idea of this is that you can create these different content types and then have fields associated with them, and each content type can have different kinds of fields. And then your users, when they're filling out a new event, they put in the date while they're filling out a static page. There's no date associated with that, so it's a really easy way to be able to really focus your content providers to just fill out the information they want. And what they're doing is they're entering stuff into the database. Drupal is a database-driven software on the back end. Once this stuff gets in there, it can then be displayed anywhere on the site that you need it to be displayed. Drupal has a user system. Now, how many developers have written their own user login system? Don't ever do that again. That problem's been solved. Drupal solved it. WordPress has solved it. Everything has solved that problem. You don't need to have to do that anymore. And so Drupal has a user login system with permissions, content publishing workflows if you want to get into that. We have a system for CAS authentication. So use something that everybody in the world has their eyes on and knows that it's secure, and Drupal is that. So don't ever have to write one of those yourself again. Now that you have all this stuff in Drupal, you got to get it out and displayed somehow, and that's what Views is for. Views is the module that allows you to basically make lists of stuff. And in tech speak, you can say it's an SQL query writer, which is what it's doing on the back end. But it's a really nice user interface for saying, I want to create a list of this, and these are the filters, and I want it to be displayed as a page, and I want to have a menu item, and I want an RSS feed, and you click the button, and it gives you all that stuff. And you can say, I want to sort it by this, I want to make relationships so that this page was created by this user, and I want the name of that user with the phone number and the picture or whatever. So any sort of SQL database queries that you want to make can be done within Views. This is sort of the kind of beginner wizard, and then it gets you into a much seemingly more complex user interface, but it's still all just pointy and clicky. I am not doing any code yet. In fact, this whole presentation has nothing to do with actually writing code. This is all within the user interface. So what we've done is we've taken the web CMS theme, the design, and we've created a Drupal theme out of that, and that's available through our distribution, which I'll share. And so the idea with this is that it has a very nice separation between the appearance of your site and then your structure, your data structure and your settings. So that you can, if you, for whatever reason, don't want to use that the default design, you can go and create your own. And we've done that a few times for clients. And the Strategic Communications has been absolutely wonderful. When we send them the design and say, okay, give us recommendations. They always give us recommendations for ways to make it meet campus requirements better. Use the marketing toolbox. We always do that kind of stuff. You should too. There's also this idea of there's this module called Panels that lets you take the blocks and kind of move them around. So it's a nice user interface for creating the blocks. That's Mark. Hi, Mark. Creating these blocks and dragging them around and styling them in different ways on your page. So Drupal is a great platform for rapid web application development. You can really build your data structure with Drupal, no coding. Just throw that stuff together and you have your web application. So I'm going to give a little demo here And what I want to talk about actually next is Pantheon. So Pantheon is a hosting, Rick mentioned it just a second ago, but Pantheon is what we use to host our Drupal sites. It's a third-party vendor, and they have a awesome high-performance platform for hosting Drupal sites. And so all the great caching and all the kind of server stuff that we don't have to deal with anymore, which is just brilliant. And so it'll give you a development, testing, and a live environment, Git integration or SFTP if you prefer. I recommend Git. Automated backups, SSL, all that kind of stuff. And so when you get new code, remember this is a code platform. This is, you're installing code anytime you do this. So whenever you install a new module or write something yourself or run an update, you want to put that in dev, and then you want to push it to test, and then you want to send it out to your users, to your, at least your office, and say, can you poke through this just for a few minutes and make sure nothing got screwed up? So that's what this is all about. And then when you're ready, and this is all just a point-and-click interface, I want to push all this from the dev environment to test. You click the button and pushes it off to test. It'll take your content from the live and bring it into test, and your code from dev and bring that into test, and kind of simulate a rollout of your web application, which is pretty slick. Now, next I want to talk about is our platform we're calling UCD Drops. So this is a distribution of Drupal. If you go to Drupal.org, download Drupal and install it, you're going to be a little underwhelmed because there's not a whole lot there right off the bat. The power of Drupal comes in with all the extra modules that you can do and all the configuration, save configuration, all that kind of stuff. So what we've done is we have made we've given you the theme, we've taken a bunch of the modules that we sort of think most people will probably want to have on their site, and we've built them all into this distribution. We've made some assumptions about, well, we'll turn these on, but once you have this in your hands, you'll be able to do anything you want with this. And so we put a bunch of modules in here, and we maintain this distribution. There's also these features that we've created. These are like saved configuration for the article. You saw these before the event, the basic page. We also have CAS and LDAP integration, so if you need students to be able to log in and fill out a form, it'll pull in their name and their department, and if they have a phone number or whatever, email address, and store them as a user within your system automatically. Portfolio, WYSIWYG, so these are features that we've created and they're part of a package. And so what we do is we maintain this distribution of Drupal core plus a lot of extra stuff. And we maintain that actually in Bitbucket. Whenever we run an update, Pantheon recognizes there's updated code and brings it into Pantheon, and then here in your environment here, okay, I should reload the page. So, and then here in your development site, you would see a block, a big yellow block that says you've got updates, and then you push go, and it brings all that stuff into development, not live. You want to be able to run it through your development, your testing environment before you push it to live. But we'll maintain all those Drupal updates, all the module updates that we maintain, and you can go and do extra stuff with extra modules, and there's 25,000 modules out there, so if you're thinking of doing something, there's probably a module for that. Go and search Drupal.org, you can probably find something. But there's lots of stuff out there that you can play around with, and so we use on almost every site we use extra modules, but there's always this set of modules that we're always going to use for like every site. How am I doing? That was probably over 5 minutes, huh? Almost 10. All right. Okay. How about cost? Pantheon is not subsidized by campus, and therefore it is not free. What we can offer is we can offer all the billing setup for you. So if you want to launch on Pantheon, you can just email me and we'll get that going. Pantheon is, however, free to develop. So if you want to go and play around with this, let me know, and I'll add you to our group. You can use the UC Davis Drops distribution. You can play around to your heart's content. The minute you want to put a domain name onto it, that's going to start charging money. So if you want to play around with, you saw the kind of the goofy domain name, no, not that one. There you go. So that'll be dev tester live. This will be whatever your thing is, your site is, and then .pantheon.com will be your domain name. And so you can play around with that, do whatever you want, and when you're ready to put a .ucdavis.edu domain name on that, you gotta talk to me, and we'll get you set up with the billing. And it starts at $50 a month. So obviously there is a pricing difference between cPanel and Pantheon. In my opinion, that's cheap for what you get with this. But there's definitely you have to think about how that fits into your own budget. If you want, and it goes up from there depending on how many sites. Obviously, if you had a site that had millions of hits a month, $50 a month probably wouldn't be good enough for you. You'd probably want to bump up to the $100 a month or more. So that's what that's all about. But it's free to check out. Send me an email. My group provides recharge web development services for the campus as well. So if you don't have the developers and you want to have a cool Drupal site that does all this extra, user login stuff, you can send me an email. We can talk. I'll build you one, and we charge hourly. So I have cards too. But definitely send me an email if you want in on this, and I'll grant you access.
Thanks, Sean.
All right.
Well, I was going to talk about Plone, but I think we should all just switch to Drupal right now. My name's Cal, everybody. I work with Trish downstairs in the basement. And I've only been doing this for 2 years now, and it's really fun. I didn't have a background in web design or any kind of code before this, so this speech will not be geared heavily towards code. It'll be more towards a real basic a flow of how Plone works, how our workflow is typically used, and some pretty designs. And that all depends on if this can activate.
It flipped briefly.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Oh.
It's teasing us.
Okay, cool. So Plone. Why do I use Plone? Well, because when I got here, that's what Trish is using, and all of our 40-odd sites are using it. So I was kind of like a baptism by fire, and I don't really know what all these other CMSs are doing, what they do better, what they do worse. So that's why this meeting is about CMS. But Drupal looks pretty cool. So schedule for today, really quickly. Don't have a lot of time, but we're going to talk about what is Plone, nuts and bolts of it, from my view, not necessarily the hardcore developer view, but from what our users are doing. And I'll give a quick example, a tour, and then if we have time, we'll get some questions going. Okay, plone.org, go check it out. It's up to version 4.3, and the top 2% of users of CMSs use Plone. So it's not overly, it's not really popular, but people are using it, right? It's growing. Founded in 2001, they have sprints that Trish is going to, and we're actually going to one in Seattle next week or next month. And it's cool. It's cool. Go check it out. So that's why I'm going to show you. I'm not going to tell you. So if I zoom out here and let's go over to Plone. Ooh, make this smaller. It's just like 10 years ago, right? The resolution's a lot smaller. We'll just have to deal with it. So you wave your magic wand, Plone's installed, this is what you're looking at, right? Here's your blank slate. This is where we all start with all of our websites. And right now I'm logged in, and you manage all of that up here on the top right. You have dashboard, preferences, site setup, log out, all that stuff. The best way that I tell if I'm logged in is if this bar shows up. Because this is what you see only if you're logged in. This is where you can edit your content, you can look at the folder structure, you can add new content, you can change the display to different templates, you can set up if only certain users can see this document, you can do all sorts of stuff. So let's jump into contents here, and we can see that this is a fresh new site, so we have, this is the top level, right? So this is the top folder, welcome to Plone is what we're looking at right now. You can tell that by the little red square. That means that this is being displayed when somebody accesses this folder. We have a news folder, an events folder, and a users folder. Now those are all predetermined by Plone. That's what automatically shows up whenever you make a new site. And you can make your own folder just by going to the right here. You can barely see it, but there's a couple different options. Obviously you can install packages that make for new options to install. Like for instance on the college homepage, we have an option for job posts. Right, so we made a new template in the back end of Plone. You can make a new job post, and that comes with X amount of little layers you can put in it. So we have collection, event, file, folder, images, links, all sorts of stuff, right? So typically the types of sites that we're designing for are all mostly news-oriented. promotion of the centers, the departments, the institutions, all sorts of stuff like that. So a big thing that we deal with are news items and collections relating to news items. So that means like a feed, right? So we want feeds to show up in different spots on the site. We want those news items to be tagged with certain topics like sustainability or agriculture, pest management, olives, all sorts of stuff. So that's all doable in Plone. Obviously, I can't go into how you do each and every one of those things right now, but you can see right here we have categorization. You can make your own tags. So what we're looking at right now is the standard layout for when you're making or editing content. So this is adding a new news item. We have the title, which is displayed when you're viewing it as the main title, right? It's like your H1. Summary, this is the description text, which gets pulled with this article anywhere on the site that it's sourced in a feed, right? So if you have a big page with all the news articles, you're going to have the title, and you're going to have the little description, and the user can click on it for more information. And the body text, which is pretty standard, right? It's like Microsoft Word. It's your WYSIWYG. You can get in there. You can have people who are non-techie do it themselves, which we have at the college, write their own news articles. What we mostly do is we also can copy HTML in here, right? So here's our HTML editor. If we want to throw in maybe some kind of JavaScript workings or a unique div ID or unique div class that's being targeted in our CSS, this is where we do it. So let's exit out of here. Image, all sorts of similar stuff. Add new, and as you can see, there's images, links, pages, and like I was talking about before, you can make your own personalized content type. So let's back up here to admin. Dashboard, and so in site setup, this is kind of like the back end, the most back end you'll get on this side of the server. So you have add-ons here, where you can add new products, right? Or add new modules that come out, add new plugins. Calendar, site setup, and the most important thing for us is users and groups. Since we have so many people editing our websites, the college needs web editors, they need people doing news items or events and managing field day and all sorts of stuff like this. This is where Plone's really useful for us because we can really quickly add a new user, set their permissions to only look at news or set their permissions to only look at a certain thing, and have them go in there and add their own content, which saves time for us, and we can, work on pretty designs and stuff, right? That's the goal. So let's look at let's go back one to site setup. The other nice thing about Plone is something called Diazo themes, which isn't actually installed on this, but what you're able to do is completely personalize your theme with just a little bit amount of XML. And like I was saying, that I came in 2 years ago having almost zero experience in coding. So when Trish told me that I would have to learn XML and HTML and CSS, it was kind of scary, but it's really simple to completely make your own theme and exactly customize it to however you want to do it. So what I tend to do is start with HTML and CSS completely static, right? And then Diazo lets me turn that into a Plone website. So I can designate which sections will be dynamic, right? So I can designate which sections I want to be a news item, and then write some XML, push that into Plone, and voila, right? It's obviously not that simple, but this is a good topic we can talk about at a different meeting. So if I move over to a site that I just did, I guess it's super squished, so. Well, that actually shows that it's responsive, right? So this is the Honey and Pollination Center, and this is built on Plone. And if I go back, let me exit out of this one, so we can quickly go back between these two. So you can kind of see the resemblance, right? This top part is the header, that's all right here. Right, so that's XML, in my XML it's saying pull my div and push it to Plone's header. Right, so that's where it's generating all of my styles, all of my stuff. This slider is just a portlet, which we didn't talk about, but we don't really have time to talk about. And this is the main content area where you can put whatever you want. So within here, with all these buttons, this is just my HTML pulling my CSS so it looks like this. Right, so that's where it can get really customizable. You can do whatever you want, really. And here's different news feeds. So whenever they make an event, this is pulling all the latest events on the site. So every time they make an event, wherever it is, it will shoot right to here. and they don't have to worry about making, copy pasting 5 different things all over the site so it's up to date. It's the same thing with news, but obviously he forgot to do a couple things. And the footer is generated also through Plone. And so that's the really quick demo I want to give today. Let's go back to Cool. So, do you have questions?
No, I guess it's over.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, that's it.
Cool. And just before you guys all run off, so I wanted to talk real quickly about what you guys want to get out of these kind of meetings. I was thinking for the next one we can just go over like CSS preprocessors. Like we can give a demo on how to use SAS, unless if any of you guys use that. So it's kind of like you can put variables and things into your CSS. So you could put declare like the campus gold and the campus blue, and then just call it with a name anywhere you want. And then when they change the colors again, you just do it in one spot instead of find and replace. But for other topics, there's if you write on the survey, you can write an idea that you guys have. If there's something that you want to talk about, that would be great. Some ideas that we kind of talked about were dealing with clients, or so some designy stuff and then some tech stuff. So talking about different coding tools that you guys use, or more in-depth things on CMSs.
Design workflow,
Design
your
workflow, or different kind of prototyping tools you may use, things like that. But yeah, does anybody have any questions or?
Can I ask a question, but it's kind of about your 2 CMSs?
Yeah.
Just a general one that came to mind. Do either one of them have the ability to have versions? So if I'm working on a page, if I got a client working on a page and they've published and they just hosed it completely,
Yeah.
they can just go back to a version right inside of it?
Yeah.
They do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so revisioning's built into Drupal,
Revisioning.
and then there's another module called Workbench, where if you want to create a new draft where the published one is still being published, you can go through a publishing workflow on the new draft of that, and while the real one is still being
Yeah, that's my
published.
favorite thing about Plone, because we have clients who are like, oh my god, I deleted this folder,
Yeah.
I don't know why, and then
Yeah.
there's a new button,
Yeah.
or there's a jump back to a certain thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Lovely. And yeah, great. Oh, or if anybody wants to do like a case study on like a website that they've launched recently or something like that. Also, I work at the College of Ag Dean's office down in the basement. That's what we do. We fish. Also,
Good job.
great. Yeah, that's about it. Thanks for coming, everybody. Oh, question.
One thing, I was wondering, on here we have CMS, fill in. If you guys could maybe, is it possible you guys collect the data?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna
publish
push it out, make a nice pretty infographic with all your guys'
Doesn't have
stats.
context?
Yeah.
Cool, that's it. Thanks.
Oh, that was another thing. So there used to be a mailing list, and I guess we're gonna try and resurrect that. So if you guys have ever questions or like things that you wanna just ask people, then you can publish it to that email. I'll email it out.
Remind me, and I'll switch it over, because it's not being used.
Okay.
And I have cards if you want to get in touch with me.
No problem.
Okay.
Great.
Thanks for coming.
Cool.
Oh, grab more pizza. There's a ton. Tons of pizza.